Hello, everybody, and welcome back to It's Okay to Be Okay. I'm Jen, and I'm here with Chrystal and Melissa, and today we have a very special guest, Kev Webster. So, Kev, I'm going to let you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us a little bit about you. Whatever you want to share is perfect, and then we can go from there.
Okay, so my name's Kev Webster, and I guess I could say that I've been an entrepreneur most of my life. From the age of 21, I've had businesses. I always knew when I was younger that I would either be in psychology or in design. I kind of just knew, but there was like a crossroads in my life. And I was kind of like in design as a draftsman for 2 years and hated it with a passion. And because it was really rigid, and I worked for an engineering company, and I walked out of the place with my boss chasing me down the through the bicycle shed, said, "There's no future in design. You know, why do you think they call them starving artists?" and things like that. And I went home, I told my dad I'd left my job. I was earning more money than he was, you know, at a very young age because of the job that I had. He didn't speak to me for months. But I did find out he was really proud that I'd made that big decision years later. But and I kind of set off on a track of doing graphic design. I had a graphic design, corporate design, printing business from the age of 21. And I've been liquidated and bankrupt a couple of times. So I've been really successful at failing. I like to say successful at failing because I didn't do it small, I did it big. Um, and then found myself at a kind of crossroads at 42, bankrupt, house gone, wife gone, business gone, and my business was very much my identity. And you know, I was known as, you know, the name of the business. You know, it was like named after me, the kind of the whole brand. It was worldwide, and I kind of realised that how exciting it was. A clean slate, not only financially, but a clean slate to kind of, oh, I wonder what track I'm going to go down now, from that design or psychology side of things. And what, you know, I'm not saying that it was all exciting. There was some dark times in that time. You know, I remember having a part-time job just to pay me through college because I went and studied to be a person-centered counsellor. And I remember I took a job part-time working as a support worker with learning disabilities in a supported living house. And I remember the first day there, the morning, I was on toilet cleaning duty, and I was on my hands and knees cleaning the toilets. I just sat there crying, thinking, "Oh my God, is this what my life has come to?" And then I met the tenants who I was working with, and I just fell in love with them. And I was supposed to do it for 3 years while I was studying, and I stayed for 7 because I loved it. I really did. And I didn't become a counsellor. I hated it. It was so broken, the way that it was, you know, person-centered counselling. I mean, you know, I know it's effective for some people, but for me, I looked around me at the people within the voluntary counselling centre where I worked, and everyone was either having mental breakdowns, financial breakdowns, or their relationships were just a mess. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, if this is a sign of my future, I don't want to go down this road. I've kind of learnt those lessons already once. So I went down the design road and started to study internet marketing, which was pretty new at the time, you know, 20 years ago. But I always remember my son saying, "If there's one thing I've learnt about you, Dad, is that you never give up." Because I said, "Oh, I'm learning internet marketing now." And he was like, "Really?" You know, and he was a teenager at the time. And yeah, and I just found myself on that road. And it was a road that taught me the value of service. And that was super powerful. And we could say the rest is history. But then there's been some real sort of changes in directions. About 5-6 years ago, I explored hypnotherapy and hypnosis again. I learned it when I was 15, actually. I used to sort of play around with it with my mum, who suffered from sort of irrational thoughts. And I worked with hypnosis with her quite effectively. Bit of a geeky things to do, but you know, I did it and it worked. And I discovered it again, not to become a therapist, because I didn't want to be a therapist. Discovered it because I wanted to put on a mentalist and magic show in my local village hall. Because I thought that'd be a really cool thing to do. I'd got a successful internet marketing business, and I thought, wow, what would I do to push the boundaries of experience? And I love mentalism and magic. And I thought, I'll do some hypnosis, because that looks like real magic in the eyes of the beholder. And I studied with a couple of amazing hypnotherapists for kind of stage hypnosis and stuff like that. And then thought, this is like the missing part of counselling. This is really effective. And I thought, that's it. I've discovered the answer to it. Did it for like 3 years, and then took some coaching programs. And on one of my coaching programs, which kind of brings the story to a kind of a close in a sense, one of the coaching programs, the guy said, I want you to take a book down from your shelf that you've read once but didn't understand, and just read it again. And I took off the shelf The Missing Link. And I remember sat and I read it from cover to cover, and just something clicked. I left the coaching program that I was on because it was way too rigid for what I sort of felt was right. But it took me on that journey to kind of look at something that I'd looked at once and not really grasped. And that's been my journey 2.5 years ago, I think, now. And it's been, wow, mind-bending. And
Wow.
I've kind of left hypnosis behind because I saw something greater, I think, in working with people. And so I give people an option. If they come to me kind of like, oh, you've been referred to me for this, I'll say, look, do you want a conversation, or do you want to do some hypnosis? And more than often they'll say, oh, let's have a conversation. And then that's it. And I've worked with some wonderful, wonderful coaches. You mentioned Marina, Mark Howard, Grace Kelly, Henriette Kertson, Denmark. Yeah, some absolutely wonderful, wonderful coaches. So I feel absolutely blessed to be where I am right now with my business. And I think I mentioned earlier, we're running our first retreat in Albia with Sheila Massand next week. And we kind of have no idea what we're going to do. But that's great. So that's where we are. That's where I am. That's me. Not a short one, was it? Nearly 10 minutes.
No, that's
I'll have a drink
amazing.
of water.
No, I love that. That is so amazing. I mean, I've had a conversation with you as well, as so everyone knows, like I've had this loop around money and being seen, and I had a conversation with Kev, and Kev, you just like made me feel like so calm and so like, oh, it is simple. It really is just that simple, isn't it? Like we get in our head, and you speak a bit about like overthinking. I see something in your post the other day about overthinking. Um, why don't you go into that?
Okay, overthinking. Yeah, I went to a retreat, and it was different than what I expected. And there was a lot to take in. A lot to take in. It was kind of verbose in a sense, the whole sort of thing. And it wasn't really my cup of tea, which was okay, because I kind of thought, no, I'm okay with not being okay about it, because this is interesting. And I remember my business partner, he sat next to me, and I looked at him, and he had like this furrowed brow, he's like, and I said, are you getting this? And he went, no, am I really stupid? I'm like, no. And I was kind of reassuring him, but I didn't tell him I didn't get it either. And I says to him, look, you're overthinking it. And I'm like giving this advice that I didn't quite know how to take myself. I was like, you're just overthinking it. Stop trying to intellectualize it. I said, you're always trying to analyze things, And I said, just chill, relax, just listen and be open to receive whatever's going on. Fingers crossed, I'm thinking, and I hope I can take that advice myself as well. Because I'd got him to go there. So I didn't want to kind of go, no, I don't get it either. But in the afternoon, I was like, how are you doing? He went, no, still not getting it. And I kind of had to admit, I says, yeah, me neither. I mean, I just aren't getting this at all. And so we just went and had fun. You know what I mean? We sat outside at the hotel, had a drink. He brought some cigars. I don't even smoke. But we were like naughty school children. It was just like we was just chilling out and we're laughing. And somebody commented and said, every time we see you, you're laughing and having fun. We want to be part of your gang kind of thing. And then we went out for some meals. And then on the last day, the speaker said to me, he said, so, Kev, what do you think? And what came out my mouth is, do you know what? You've taught me not to think. And he just looked at me and went, that's it. Now, I don't know whether that was his intention or not, but that was certainly what I received. And from that moment, my head became really empty. Really empty. And I'm like, is it going to start getting noisy again at any time? Or is it going to remain empty? And I have a feeling it's going to remain really empty. And that was such a kind of, an amazing experience. So overthinking, analyzing, trying to work things out, getting stuck in that, what I call little mind, without it sounding dismissive. Just I just find myself not getting caught up in that, and I have this spaciousness. I think that's the word that really sums it up, as spaciousness, and it is just wonderful. Yeah, just to live in that space. And it was that kind of realization that I don't have to work it out. It's not all on me. That was the message. So overthinking, it's overrated. I go to a martial arts class, and my teacher is, I mean, it's martial arts based on the runes, and it's Scandinavian style, and like no one's heard of it. But this guy is this wonderful man who's a lay Methodist preacher / pagan who teaches Scandinavian martial arts, and he's from England. I mean, you couldn't make it up. And he talks about the redundancy of movement because it's like martial arts for older people. So he doesn't want us spraining muscles or overexerting ourselves. And he said, I'm teaching you the minimal movement for the maximum defense. And I'm realizing he's got it. He gets it. Redundancy. So thinking is a redundant art. That's what I come to the conclusion of. It's overrated, it's overused, and so much of our thinking is redundant. It's useless, serves no purpose, and I think that's the big realization. So yeah, that's my little thing on overthinking.
I love what you were saying there because, yeah, it's gets us nowhere. But we have these, like, some of the thoughts we have are so ingrained that we don't even realize we're in them. And then when it gets brought to our attention and we can see it, it's like, I've been doing this to myself the whole time. And then after that one seeing it, we get to like just start to become more aware of when we get caught up in our own overthinking and we get to learn our own patterns. I got to learn Friday, I went to work sick and we had this big quarterly meeting. And I haven't overthought like that in such a long time. It was such a miserable feeling. You just that trying to understand what they were saying and not quite getting it and being sick, so the overthinking just kinda worked its way in there without me realizing it. And then I was almost in a panic attack, like, ready to cry, and it's like, "What is happening? Oh, I'm overthinking. I'm getting caught up in my own crap up here, and it has nothing to do with out there."
And the fact that you said that you was feeling ill, that low level of, in that dip
Yep.
where we have no perspective or very little perspective. Yeah, yeah. Looking at life with a flashlight.
Yeah. But the fact that I was aware of overthinking before that happened,
Yeah.
it only lasted a short amount of time. I mean,
Mm.
I think 20, 30 minutes of where I was in that ready to break down, the mental breakdown you were talking about earlier that people get
Mm.
in. But because I've already become aware of that overthinking, I didn't stay stuck in it for so long.
Yeah.
And that's one of the coolest parts of this whole understanding. We're gonna get caught up. It
Mm.
happens, but we don't have to stay stuck in it.
I had a similar thing the other day. So I actually was in the bath and I was like, "Universe, tell me what to do." I was like, "Tell me what to do to move forward in my business." And I had been invited to do a talk in May, and I realized that I had been procrastinating on it a bit. I hadn't been messaging her back, and I thought maybe I've left it too late now. I asked the universe, "What should I do?" And then within like half an hour, I got an email from the woman saying, "You're on." Like, "You're speaking." I'm like, "Ah, shit." And then I was like, "Okay." And I really love that, like, if you ask, you'll get the answers. Just ask and, like, be quiet and be open enough for it, and the answers will come, and I love that about this understanding and the universe and, um, that intelligence that is always there for us, that's leading us the way. But quite often, our thinking is just clouding it, and that is all that's in the way, it's our thinking.
I think that, first of all, Kev, beautiful. I love listening to your story there and your journey. And man, yeah, I know what it's like to be fabulous at feeling. I've done it too. Um, yeah, overthinking. Never, ever, ever will it get you anywhere. It'll feel like you're going somewhere, but you're not. It's just all the different stories that we tell in our head. And I know we've talked about overthinking before and overanalyzing because you can call it what you want. There's all kinds of little clever names we can call it, but it's still overthinking. It's still that racing mind. And in the beginning, when you were telling us your journey and how you came to that spacious no thought and how long am I going to stay there? It's it's beautiful. I love it. It's the place I like to live. That's the place I like to call home. Yeah, can we be taken out of it by a story from the past or a made up future? Of course we can, if we believe that thought to be true. That's the key right there is once we start believing what we're thinking, that's where it starts to gain the momentum. That's where it starts to feel like, "Mm, I can't, I don't know what my next move is in my business, or, I just can't fall asleep because my mind is just going a mile a minute. And we don't even realize that some of the things we do, and I saw this kind of in one of your postcasts, one of some of the things we do out there that people try to calm that thinking, to get at, to sleep at night or to get out of that story, the techniques and stuff out there, they might be helpful, for just a little bit, but it's not lasting change. And that's what's beautiful about the three principles and being in this journey and living from this space is there's no doubt in my mind, no doubt anywhere in my soul that this is a forever change. And no effort. I don't have to do anything to remind myself. It's kind of like Jen was saying too, you recognize that you're getting caught up in an old habit, or you recognize a feeling in your body and you're like, ooh, I don't like the way this feels, and let it go. And so, yeah, I love it.
It's allowing those little clicks, isn't it? It's that little kind of aha moment, that little light bulb, that little insight that kind of changes you forever. And it's allowing yourself to be quiet enough for that to land. So as you guys know, that I've been struggling with my weight, been trying to force an insight around it so that it just happened naturally. And it has. So the last few days I've had this like resistance in tracking my food, because I used to do it before, and I used to do bodybuilding, and I used to track my food all the time, and it used to become addiction. And I was like, no, I don't want to track my food. I want an insight to come and help me instantly, so then I don't have to worry about it. And the last few days ago, I got an insight, and it was about, you can use it to start. You know, start tracking your food so you can see the direction you're going in, and then it will happen naturally. And it was just, and it just, all I can explain was, it was just this resistance that just like, because like, well, I can't do that because that's not free principles. You know, I can't use techniques because it's not free principles. But actually, everything is free principles. Everything is mind. Everything is intelligence. Everything is useful. And now, like, I lost 3 pounds already. When I went to my gym, someone said, oh, you look like you've lost weight. It's just like, oh, my reality is starting to reflect already my belief. I was like, wow, that's so interesting. And it did. It was just that little click. And it can be so, we often think that these insights are these massive breakthrough magical moments, like lightning striking, but actually they can be so simple, so normal, and have the biggest effect on our lives that we can ever imagine. And they're so normal. And I think that's where I used to get wrong, not wrong, but I used to struggle with, because with all the other things I've done, like belief coding, hypnosis, like you said, all these things feel like they're massive and they change you instantly, but they don't. Whereas free principles it's so normal. It's so normal, but also at the same time, so incredibly magical.
Yeah, I love that, Melissa. And when you said normal, the thing that went in my head was natural.
Yeah.
It's just natural. You know, we're just going back to our nature. And the insights, you know, a lot of people, some coaches and, you know, 3 principles, people have said to me, oh, you know, I'm not getting insights like you know, these big insights. And I'm like, who said they were big? Yeah, and the whispers.
Yeah.
Oh, they're just little whispers, and they're there all the time if we allow them the space constantly. I remember having a conversation with Marina, and she said to me, is there any moment in your life where you're not receiving insight? And it was like, oh my God, no, there isn't. I might not be hearing it, but I'm receiving it. It's always playing. And that realization that there is no lack, there is just thinking getting in the way of it. That was a lovely reminder, and that they come as a whisper, not as thunderbolts. I think I did a little post about that, or even I think I did actually a sort of a Zoom call to say, you know, they're not thunderbolts, they're whispers, and they're there all the time. Because when people put expectations, thinking behind what is going to happen, they see, oh, you know, I wish I was the same as other people who are getting this amazing, you know, and it's kind of like, well, we're just describing it as amazing because that's how we feel about it. But actually how it arrived could have been a microsecond while we're eating dinner or out having a walk, or it's kind of, oh, that's it. it wasn't big tablets with it written on it coming from the sky. It was just that little whisper. And I think, being open to hearing those whispers lets us know we're really stepping into our own natural way of being. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I find the more that you do listen, the more you hear. Yeah, even just silly little things like going down the road and seeing a flower and then just seeing the beauty of it just like overwhelm you. Like, it's incredible.
It definitely opens our eyes.
One of the greatest gifts that the principles has given me is the ability to trust myself, because I doubted myself with everything. Because, I was really good at messing everything up. I was a pro at it, and it didn't matter what it was, I could mess it up because I didn't trust myself. And once I started seeing through my thoughts, and Dickon told me a long time ago when I was trying to ask him a how to, because we all want the how to. And he had told me, You're trying too hard. Just stop it. Stop it." And wanted me to start to listen to that wisdom that we all have that has never left us. And, he told me back then that if you learn to trust your wisdom with the small things, then when something big happens, that's going to be the first place you turn. And that was the best advice I'd ever gotten. And I started doing it. I started testing out my wisdom with the small things. When I'd find myself overthinking something, trying to overanalyze it and figure it out, oh, well, I'm not helping myself right now. And I could drop that and just wait and see what happens. And it's built up so much trust within myself that I never had before. And with that trust in myself and the wisdom that's within me, it's put me on a road that I never thought I would be on. It just being able to do things that, really, I shouldn't be allowed to do what I do. Not that I'm a bad person, but I used to be. I used to be a horrible person. I used to be a criminal. I used to just whatever. It was what it was. Deep down, my morals weren't bad, but my actions were illegal, if that makes sense. And I had always believed that I would always be that throwaway. And now I'm in a spot that I never imagined possible. And it was all from stepping out of my thinking and trusting the wisdom within me. And I know before we started recording, Kev, you had said something about purpose and how people's, it comes up a lot when we work with people. Well, what's my purpose? What am I supposed to do? But when we sit and think about it and analyze it, it's never going to get us where we're supposed to be. It's our wisdom that leads us to our purpose. And a lot of times our purpose can just be to not suffer, to live a happy life, a content life, and not harm anybody around us. And when we're connected with our wisdom, we give so much more to everybody around us than we even realize. Because when we're not in our heads, we create a space wherever we're at, a quiet space that allows others to drop out of their thinking. And we all want to think that we have this great big purpose, but we're all tiny little dots. And maybe our purpose is just to not hate each other, to not make things worse, but to be so completely at peace and in tune with ourselves that it allows others to find that within themselves too.
I always think of it like our purpose is to forget who we are so that we get to have fun remembering who we are again. Like, because we are the universe experiencing itself through every experience there is, whether that's a human, a tree, a squirrel, you know? And I found like when I see life through that lens, it becomes so much more fun. Like even my struggles right now with being visible, there's an underlining feeling of it's a game, it's fun, it's enjoyable. My soul wants this. It wanted me to forget who I was so that I got to have that journey of remembering who I was again. You know? I mean, someone asked me a couple months ago, what do you think the purpose of life is? And I said, well, that's your job. You know? That is our job, to have an experience. From the understanding, that changed my life in the way that I saw life. I didn't take it so seriously. Even when I am serious in my thinking with struggling, I still don't take it seriously. It's like I had an insight the other day, and it's about, I was just driving down the car in the passenger seat, and I was looking up at the sky, and I was seeing the sky and the clouds, and I was just like, the background of our experience is peace. Like everything is peace. It's like a piece of paper. Every story is written on a piece of plain paper. That plain paper is our who we are, that essential piece, that love. So even a tragedy has to be written on that piece of paper. And I thought that was a really beautiful insight that I had the other day. I wanted to share.
You know what I love about that you say that, the piece of paper. And for people that are out there that are experiencing, maybe their experience of life is not what they want it to be, not what they thought it would be. Crumble up that piece of paper and toss it out and grab yourself a new one. Because that's what this understanding gives you in any given moment. It's a new moment. It's a new opportunity to just be, to, like you were saying, find yourself or find your purpose. It's actually what I hear when that comes to me is it's about letting go of all the other crap. It's about letting go of all the other stories. It's about letting go of what you learned along the way that you thought was your purpose. You thought this was what made you who you are, why you are the way you are. And you strip all that away. And you just come back to your essence, your authentic, beautiful soul. Nobody else has that same soul. And so, yeah, the whole purpose for everybody being a different purpose. Well, yeah, our purpose is, I think you said, Melissa, just to be, just to be, just to experience, to have fun, get curious with it. Years ago when one of my first experiences after having like this shift in consciousness was my car being repossessed. And I I was sitting in my room And like I could hear in the living room them talking about it at night. I say them, my family, my kids, my husband. And the only thought I had about it that went through my mind was, well, I'll either get it back or I won't. And then I was like, it's like I braced myself seriously. I was like, who the hell just said that? What? That's not who I am. I'm going to freak out because that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to freak out, throw a fit, do all these things that are not helpful. But I didn't. And I didn't like say, no, don't freak out. I just didn't. That whole weird thought went through and I was like at peace with that thought. And was like, yep, what is there for me to do but just to see? Why get caught up in the overthinking? Let's play out this story. What if this? What if that? Wasn't going to get my car back. So yeah, I love it. This understanding is beautiful. And just being in that space, being in that peace, being with sometimes shit happens. It's whatever story you want to tell about that is what's going to make up your day, your moment, your week. You don't have to have any story about it at all. You can just let it be. You can let it go. And best part is you don't have to believe it. And one thing about wisdom, Kev, I think you were talking about it. It's being a whisper, not a thunderbolt. I always said that too. It's a whisper because the opposite of that is the screamer. And so the screamer is that overthinking or the ego or the personal mind, the stories we tell, so loud and so obnoxious. And when we just can see past all of that, yeah, and we have so much more space and capacity for wisdom to hear it, to feel it, to know that nudge that's coming from inside you. It's so beautiful. I don't know what the point was to all that just came out of my mouth, but there you go.
I love that. I heard something in what you just said about the whisper and the screamer and how that's how you know the difference. That's how you know the difference. Like I saw it as plain as day. Like the wisdom doesn't need to scream because it doesn't need to know. It's the screamer, the ego that needs to scream because it wants desperately for you to listen to it. And so if it's loud, you know that that's the ego. If it's quiet and subtle, then you know that's the direction to follow. I love that. That's what I just heard.
When you just said that, it made me think of like a little kid trying to get your attention. They'll do whatever it takes to get your attention, get louder, get obnoxious, whatever it takes. And yeah.
Wow. Kev, how have you found, because you were a business person before and after the 3 principles, so how have you found that the 3 principles has changed the way you do business?
Wow. Yeah, that's a biggie. It's made me really irresponsible. That's what comes to mind. It's made me really irresponsible, in a really lovely way. Because I remember, I had one of my manufacturing businesses, and I was very absent in just about everything I did. I was always thinking about fulfilling the next order with a wholesaler. I was always thinking about the cash flow. I was always thinking about all these things. I was really, really absent. And I remember my son saying to me, he said, when I was a teenager, you were there, but you weren't really there, Dad. And when he said it, it kind of hit me really, really hard. And I was like, oh. And I thought, oh, no, he's right. I was innocently caught up in thinking I was doing the right thing. And that was holding it all together for my family, making sure I was providing. I mean, I had 3 school stops every morning and every night, and was running a business. How I did it, how I never crashed my car, how I never did any crazy things, how I never took to drink, how I never did any of those crazy things, I will never, ever know, because I was full speed, full on responsibility. Well, you know, and I love the word responsibility, because I always think about it as being the ability to respond. I had the ability to respond to all those things. I had all the energy to do it all, but it was not helping me, because the result was I lost it all. So it wasn't going in the right direction. So now, with the principles and with the way that I run my business, and I'm not saying this as a kind of ego thing, but I've never had so much savings in my life. I never had savings ever until I was in my 50s. Never had any savings. It was always hand to mouth. And I kind of just relaxed into being in business and really just being in joy, enjoying it. Biggest thing for me is really being in service. That is where I find that I feel really, really aligned with what I'm doing. So I'm not in business, I'm just serving. And the first time I ever kind of got that, there was an internet marketer from Australia, a guy called Brett Fall, and he said, give away your best stuff for free and people will come back to you with their wallets wide open, begging to pay you money. You see, I remember it off by heart, that fluid, because it became my mantra. And I remember doing it. I was on Fiverr, providing like graphics for people for a Fiverr. And a client came to me, now it's 20 years ago, came to me and asked me to do some graphics. And I over-delivered. So much so that she asked me to work for her part-time on a retainer for an amount of money that I couldn't believe. I still work with her today, all them years later. And it becomes such a wonderful relationship and friendship. And she always introduces me as, this is Kev, my guy from England, who over-delivers. And that was just so lovely. So my attitude towards business is really to not take it too seriously and to have fun with it. And most importantly, ask myself, am I in service? Because if I'm in service, it feels effortless. And lots of good fortune seems to arrive. No targets, no goals, none of those kind of pressured things that are all about thinking, but just being really present in what I do, loving. I guess that's a byproduct, is I just love what I do anyway. And people feel that. My clients feel that, whether it's marketing clients or therapy clients, my clients feel that I really, really love what I do. I had a client the other day, a therapy client, and he was kind of questioning the principles, and it was, what you're telling me is I just need to stop thinking. I'm like, I never said stop thinking. Hell, I wouldn't suggest that. I said, stop taking those anxious thoughts so seriously. You can't stop thinking. It's just, it's a byproduct of being human, but you don't need to take every thought so seriously. And he's looking at me, like throughout the session. I just said to him, you probably think I'm batshit crazy, don't you? And he kind of went, I went, you can say yeah if you want. That's okay. I said, because sometimes I even question my own sanity around these things. But I still have a good feeling about it. So it tells me I'm in the right direction. And I want you to have that good feeling about yourself. That's all I wish. That's all I wish for. You have that good feeling about yourself. And I said, and I'm more committed right now to that than you are. That look on your face. That should change. Let's hope it changes. And I could feel the shift. my human-to-human vulnerability of saying, you probably think I'm batshit crazy. I'm not the specialist. I'm not the expert. I'm just somebody pointing in a direction that I trusting. That's it. And it came back.
I love that. And what about around relationships? Like, that's the one area in my life that's really transformed. But you said about that you lost your wife and you lost like relationships in the past. How are your relationships now compared to before?
Oh, so I'm really selfish now. In that sense. When I got to 60, I become really, really aware of my mortality. Insecure thinking, obviously. But I kind of like looked at the relationship that I was in at the time and thought, actually, I don't want this. And so we had a conversation. And I knew it was going to be painful in many areas. And yet I knew that it was a singular thing. I knew what I needed to do. And we carried on living together for 6 months in the same house while she sold the house, because it was her house. Because I never wanted credit again in my life, so I never bought another house. I just I was living with her in her house, and I remember there was some real times where it was like it was a little bit painful and quite unbearable at time. And for her, and I understand that she was caught up in her thinking about it and the kind of rejection and all that. And she would just say, look, I just need you to get out, just go away for a few days while I just have some space on my own. And I already had my bug out bag set up, and I would just say, no problem. I'd take my bag and I'd just go in an Airbnb for a few days, and then send a text saying, okay, if I come back, kind of thing, yeah, okay, yeah, come back, we need to talk about something. And I just found that there was a real honesty there, real honesty. And she started getting really curious about the three principles, which was lovely. And then started to tell me stuff. And then I remember one day she said to me, do you know what? If I was you, I would never have put up with what you've put up with for the last 6 months. And that was so beautiful for her to see that. And I said, you were just caught up in, your thinking and the pain of that thinking. And, I totally got it. I never pushed back. We never fought. It was just a singular decision. And I knew it was the right thing to do. It was like every cell in my body knew it was the right thing to do. There was no multiple choice question in that decision. It was singular. And it was like, this has to happen. And so in respects to my relationships, my attitude towards relationships, I mean, my friendships and relationships, and there's a real ease in my relationships. Even with friends who are maybe acting out a little bit and stuff in different ways, I get it. I kind of get it. And it makes me smile. And I might tease them in a friendly kind of way. But I feel no judgment. That's the other thing. I was like Mr. Judgmental, really, really judgmental. And now I've become far less cynical. Yeah, I was very cynical, far less cynical, and not perfect, but far less cynical than I was. And that feels a lot lighter as well. Yeah, so yeah, it's had a big impact on my relationships. It really has. And I feel like I've got a really good relationship with myself as well in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing for me is the relationship with self. Like, I used to have so much hatred towards myself, so much judgment toward myself, and I would see that judgment through others. And now it's an amazing, the lightness, like you were saying, the lightness that comes from it, of not taking yourself too seriously, not taking other people too seriously. Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you, Kev, for being here. Is there anything else that you want to share, that's something that's in your heart right now that you want to share with people and get a message out to people?
I think a little insight that I kind of had the other day was just thinking about Sydney Banks' words of, we're one thought away from happiness. And I don't know why, I was just walking, as I do every day in the countryside. And it just came to me that it was like, actually, it's not a thought that's a doorway. It's a thought that's the block. So if we just drop that thought, then happiness is there. It wasn't about adding a thought, because you could sell another thought, couldn't you? So you could package that as a marketing tool. I have the one thought that you need for happiness. Get it here. It's going to cost you a lot of money. And I just realized that, within the missing link, he talks about the what isn't a lot more than the what is. And it really landed. It was like, it's dropping that one thought that is holding us from happiness. It's not an addition, because there's no extra that we need. We've got everything that we need. It's just dropping. So that was for me, that was like an insight that landed, and I don't know where it came from. I don't know why I was even thinking about that sentence as it was, but it was lovely. Yeah, such a lovely feeling. It was like, and it felt, there's the truth. So yeah, I just like to share that.
I love that. I love that. Just recently, I started writing like little insights down, and that is almost the exact same thing I have written down in my little special little folder where I write our book notebook, where I write it down. And it was just being on a call and hearing someone ask something about that whole the one thought away. And instantly when they were asking this question, I don't remember what call I was on and who I was listening to or whatever, I heard in my mind, yeah, that one thought is no thought. You're one thought away. As long as you're stuck in that thought, let it go. And there is where you will find the peace, the joy, the contentment, the fulfillment, everything you're looking for out there is in that space of no thought. Yeah, I love that because, yeah, I wrote that one down. I don't write many of them down. So
Wonderful.
beautiful.
Well, I will say I've had so much fun here with you all today, and what you've shared, and it's like, oh my goodness, talk about kindred spirits and that lovely, lovely feeling. So the lovely feeling in the room right now, thank you so much for that. It is, yeah. You're all amazing people doing amazing things, and and to think you've done this all those many times as well. You're inspiring me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kev. And thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an amazing experience having you on this show today. And yeah, it's been great.
It's been an honor. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us and being here. And if people wanted to reach out to you, if people wanted to contact you, how could they do that?
I have a website, kevwebstercoach.com. So all one word, kevwebstercoach.com. So I have a website where people can book a deep insight call. I think I've called it 90-minute free call, which I really love doing, because again, it's about being in service and connecting with people. So yeah, if anybody's watching that and they would like to hear some more and to have a chat, heart to heart, then yeah, that would be a pleasure.
And if anyone wants to know about your retreat, I know it's next week, but you probably do some other ones. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
yeah, bit short notice. You probably won't get a flight now unless you lived close by. But yeah, I mean, this was something that was kind of came up on a retreat and exactly a year ago, and the retreat. One of the organisers just went around the room and said, "Is anything that you really, really dream of that you'd like to come true?" And I just sat there, and it come out my mouth, "I'd love to be sat where you are this time next year doing my own retreat." And then like minutes later, Sheila grabbed me while I was having a coffee. She went, "So let's talk about this retreat." And that was it. Do you know what I mean? And we sat there. Well, we played pool that night, my business partner and I, and we was like, "So what are we going to do? What's this retreat going to be?" And it kind of evolved, and we chatted about it, and it's still evolving now at the kind of last minute. And we've got 2 people on it. And my business partner said to me that this was your dream, because he said what he'd like to do, and all of that's happened now. And he said, "This was your dream." And he said, "You've got 2 people on this retreat. Are you feeling disappointed in any way that there's only 2 people on it?" And I'm like, "Did he what?" He went, "Disappointed, that more people are coming." And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm really stepping into the isness of the fact that we've got 2 people." I said, it couldn't be more perfect, as it was never about money. It was never about a number. Though wouldn't it be nice if is kind of like just a little kind of dream sort of thing. But yeah, I'm going with what is. And both people who are coming, we know. Yeah, I'm just loving the fact that it is happening. We're committed, and I know we're going to have a wonderful time. And as I said to Sheila, it gives us a lovely opportunity to do more of an intensive with those people, which is something I would love to do one-to-one. I have an Airbnb in my village here. I only live in a little village of like 100 houses, and there's an Airbnb, and we live in the countryside. And so one of my dreams is to do weekend intensives one-to-one with people, and I'll do other stuff like my spoon carving and my different stuff, and give them some craft opportunities, and just to really kind of step out of the digital world into the countryside, and just walk and immerse themselves and just be present. So that's a dream of what I would really, really, really love to do, and it will happen. I know it will. So yeah.
Well, I love that. And I love that as well, because I feel like in the digital world, everyone is craving for that personal connection again. Which I think is it's a good thing, like the AI and the digital and that, because it is getting people to look back at themselves and look back at that connection that we've missed for so long. And I feel like now is the time for coaches like us to bring that into the world.
Yeah. For people to be playful, have fun, be like children, not take themselves too seriously. Yeah, so that's what I'm really kind of, I'm excited about. Yeah.
Well, Kev, again, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. And yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for everything. It's been wonderful. I didn't know what to expect, which was great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.